Just to give you an overview, first I'm going to start with the basics. What are we really talking about here? What do some of the terms mean? Who are the players? What are their technologies? Then we'll talk a bit about what's at stake for the United States and for North Carolina. We'll look at the statistics as to where the U.S. is today as compared to some of the other leading nations in the world. We'll look at where the leading nations are heading, where the U.S. is heading, and where North Carolina is heading, and then I will make some recommendations. Let me add that much of the work that I'll be talking about today was done in the context of a white paper that we are developing for the ENC Authority. As the chairman mentioned, our firm is involved in broadband work all across the country, and I must say that there is not a better group of people working on this issue than Jane Smith Patterson and her crew at the ENC Authority. You have a real gem of an asset here in ENC. Let's start with the basics. What are we talking about when we talk about broadband? What it generally means is it's a service or product that allows the transmission of information over the internet at high speed. To break that down a bit further, the internet is a global network of lots of different kinds of networks, public, state, private, and they all talk to each other successfully by using a standardized set of rules that we refer to as Internet Protocol. Internet Protocol, in turn, uses what's called digital information, and what we mean by digital is that there are only two letters in that alphabet, 1 and 0, and those two letters are called binary integers, which is shortened to the term bit, and 8 bits make a byte. And so if you see up there the 01101111, that is a byte. You can vary the order of those ones and zeros. You can code anything with that kind of information now. You can code voice, video, pictures, you name it, you can put it into binary form. You can then build words with bytes of information. You can build paragraphs. You can build sounds, movies. Everything can be done in this binary language, this digital language, and that's why all those systems all across the world can talk to each other. Now, a couple of other terms that we'll use as we go through this presentation today is 1,000 bits are a kilobit, 1,000,000 bits is a megabit, and 1,000,000,000,000 bits is a gigabit. Now, when you compare capacities of broadband systems and networks, it's common to talk about their information carrying capacity. That is either sometimes talked about as data speed, sometimes it's talked about as bandwidth capacity. They mean pretty much the same things. It's the number of kilobits of information per second that can pass through that system, or the number of megabits or the number of gigabits. And so when you hear someone say that dial-up has a capacity of 56 kilobits per second, that's what they're talking about. And we'll use those terms frequently as we go on. Just in passing, by the way, I've thrown a fire hose of information at you in these slides. I don't mean to go through everything, but it'll be available to you if you need later. Some more basics. You've heard the term convergence, I suppose. What that means is that not only do all systems around the world talk to each other in Internet Protocol, but it is possible for lots of different technologies to carry these kinds of signals. For example, phone systems can do it. Phone systems can now carry not only phone messages but also video programming. They can also carry data. They can carry pictures and everything else, and that's also true of cable systems and electric systems and wireless. And so each system has its own strengths and weaknesses. Typically, all of the major systems nowadays start from what we refer to as the internet cloud, in which there's a lot going on. Then there are connections from that cloud to a gathering point in the cable industry. We refer to it as a head end. In the phone industry, it's typically a central office or an extension of the central office that we call it a DSLAM. And then there is a middle mile that connects up the central offices and neighborhood gathering locations. Then there is what we refer to as the last mile, which is the connection between, in the case of cable industry, a neighborhood node and the residences. In the case of the phone industry, the central office or DSLAM. In the case of the fiber industry, the fiber can go to a neighborhood node, or it can go all the way to a home. You'll see more of this shortly. Now, imagine that what you're seeing now is in scale, and the circles, consider them to be pipes of information, just for purposes of discussion. So the bigger the pipe, the more information passes through it. And as we start at the top and you see dial-up, that's not very much information carrying capacity. As you get down toward the bottom, capacity grows and grows. Currently today, our first generation of DSL cable are around the single-digit range, in the megabit range. As you go farther and farther down, AT&T and Time Warner are now in the 6 to 10 megabits range for bandwidth. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Verizon and Comcast, in their higher bandwidth offerings, have moved into the 5 to 50 range. I'm sorry that the circle, the bottom circle, is so difficult to see, but what I'm showing there, that's about 100 megabits per second, and there you see about 85% of Japan and much of Korea and many, many cities, leading cities around the world like Paris, Oslo, Vienna, Milan, Munich, Amsterdam, Stockholm. New York will have that kind of capacity by 2014, and Wilson, North Carolina, will have that kind of capacity very shortly, if it already hasn't turned itself on. Now let me show you what is available in Singapore and Hong Kong. There we go. That's the kind of bandwidth capacity that they're building toward. Now, why does this matter? Let me try to illustrate for you what different speeds can actually do. And if this works for me, okay. For those of you who haven't seen this before, this calculator comes from the Netherlands, and it is timed to show you the different bandwidth speeds for different kinds of uses. As you go down here to the bottom, you can select different kinds of uses for display. For example, let's go to business. Much of what we're going to do today is stress economic development. And let's say you have a software update that you want to get